We're gonna make lobster rolls today, but we're gonna start by catching our own lobsters. Let's go. All right, we're en route to go get those lobsters. I didn't really get to explain this part yet, but just by chance, my brothers and I, for probably the last 4 summers, have a couple lobster traps. During the winter time, when all the storms happen, we always go on the beaches and find these beat up, washed up lobster traps. Then we fix all of them up and toss them back in each summer with all these fish we catch as bait, or sometimes just cheap pieces of chicken, because lobsters seem to really like chicken. In fact, I'm pretty sure most of them like drums better than wings, just like I do. We'll be there in a couple minutes and we'll take you out to sea. Okay, so this right here is our first lobster trap, and I swear, these are actually ours. We're not just pulling up random people's traps right now. Pete, you wanna pull the first one up? Yeah. You would pretty much never, ever see anybody pull this kind of thing up in a kayak because of how heavy these can be if they have lobster in them. So we have to be really careful not to flip the kayak over. So it looks like our first one, we didn't get anything except for spider crabs, which you technically can eat, but we're not gonna be eating those today. So once Pete has cleared out the trap, I'm gonna hand him some good old fish. And he's gonna toss that right in the trap, and we're gonna hope that next time we actually get a few lobsters in this one. Sometimes it's definitely hit or miss, but fingers crossed for the second trap. On to the next one. Second buoy, big fingers crossed that this one delivers. Pete, let's see it.
All right, and here's the trap. And so we got 5 in this trap, and now I'm gonna hand them to Nick so he can determine if they're keepers or not. And when we grab them, we wanna grab right behind here so the claws up front can't get us.
So what we wanna do when we test them is go behind that notch in their eye with this thing here. Ah, are you laughing? Don't make me fire you in the ocean. And because that notch doesn't go all the way past this bottom part of their carcass, this one right here is a keeper. The rest of these little guys like this, they get to go back and swim another day. How can you not want to eat that frozen, stinky fish? Last trap, we did pretty well on that other one, but I think we're gonna get some big boys in this one right here. So this cute little guy that was in the trap right here is a stone crab, which you can totally eat. But we think that the sad part about it is that you have to rip off their claws and you really only eat that part of it. So we also like to let these little guys go. So it looks like we got an absolute beast in this trap right here, which is pretty exciting. That's a huge claw. This claw right here is about the size of Pete's hand. And if you compare it to a regular little guy like this, just look at how enormous that thing is. You can eat this thing in one bite. And now we're heading back to shore to check out our haul. So all in all, it looks like we got about 4 sizable lobsters here. One of them unfortunately doesn't have a claw, but I just want you to look again at the scale of how truly monstrous this huge guy right here is. I'd say he's almost double the length of any of the other lobsters that we have here. And just his claw alone is bigger than the body of this one right here. To make sure these things don't kill each other on the ride home, Pete's gonna band up all their claws so they can't absolutely destroy each other, because we want them all in one piece when we get back to the kitchen. And one last little thing, to tell if the lobsters are male or female, you look at these 2 little parts right here. If they're harder and more rigid like these ones are, this is a male lobster. And if they're softer and more feathery like this, it's a female lobster. It looks here like we got mostly males. Minnie, what do you...
Give me the camera.
All right, thanks for taking us out, Pete. It's time to take these back to the kitchen and make some lobster rolls. Homemade everything, of course. So we are almost home. I got one of my cute little lobbies riding shotgun up here. I had to fire Manny during the ride, and this lobster instead got to sit in the front seat and hold the camera. And he actually did a fabulous job. But let's go back home and make some lobster rolls. We are back, and we have these 2 beauties right here. I left the rest of the lobsters for everybody else to enjoy. As you can see, we got some of the nice lively ones too. It looks like this one right here is a girl, and the other one happens to be a girl as well. Looks like I'm quite the ladies' man today. While we wait for that water to heat up to steam our lobsters, let's make our homemade buns. But before I make those buns, one little quick thing. I've completely stopped asking you to like the videos for me. Instead now, I ask that you like them for little baby Pesto, the cutest hamster in the world, and the little guy that secretly controls everything I do in the kitchen. He's my little Remy from Ratatouille. Quickly go down and toss a like on the vid, make sure to subscribe, and now, let's get rolling. Now it's time to make those nice hot dog buns. First, we're gonna go in with 2.5 cups of lukewarm water. It should just be very slightly warm to the touch. Then with 1/4 cup granulated sugar, and then while whisking, about a tablespoon of active dry yeast. Make sure you're whisking when you pour this in, otherwise it gets really clumpy. Now we'll let this sit for about 5 minutes to wake up. Now once our yeast has woken up and it's all foamy, oh, cut the camera. We're gonna close this down, and as we begin to mix, I'll slowly add in about 6 cups of all-purpose flour. Soon after this, I'm then gonna add in 1 melted stick of butter, or a 1/2 cup of butter. That, of course, will give us really nice buttery hot dog buns. And last but not least, we gotta give it just a little bit of salt, because we don't want totally unseasoned hot dog buns. Once it's been kneading for a while, I'll pull it off my dough hook, and now I'll add just a little bit of oil and toss in that dough ball. Now I'll cover this with a damp kitchen towel to rest for about 1.5 hours. Once this thick boy has had time to rest, check out that giant muffin that we've created. It's time for an extremely satisfying part of making any bread, giving it a whack. Watch it as it deflates down really quickly. It's still gonna keep a lot of those air bubbles, but we need to make it so that it's actually still workable, because now it's time to gather it all up, flour that whole board, and turn it into hot dog rolls. At this point, once I've shaped it into a nice big log, I'm gonna go ahead and cut some pieces out. Normally I'd use a bench scraper for this, but this knife here will do just fine. I wanna make these hot dog rolls easy for you, so I'm actually simply gonna cut them off like this, stretch them out just a bit more, and shape them into what looks like a hot dog roll, and that is it. Now we'll lay down all of our hot dog rolls, then cover them again for about 15 minutes to rise. Now, it's time to get going with our lobster. Now comes one of the more sad parts of our video. The bummer is, I really love all animals, so it's never fun to cook or kill lobsters. We're not gonna show this part on camera, but what basically happens next is, in a split second, our knife goes straight through here on the lobster, instantly killing it. Cross me, and bad things will happen. Once our gorgeous and beautiful hand-caught lobsters are dead, I'm gonna go ahead and place them into the water. These will steam for about 15 minutes or so until we're ready to extract that meat. Once these beauties have been steaming for quite some time, we can take these out and I'll quickly show you how to remove all the meat. First things first is this beautiful lady's tail. We're gonna peel and twist it off, and it actually looks like inside she had some babies. Now we're gonna straighten out the tail, come right in the bottom with a fork to get some leverage, and then leverage the whole tail right out. As you can see right here, we have our beautiful lobster tail. But we're not done with this just yet. If you peel back each of these pieces and then pull them out, you can still get some small bits of meat. And every last bit counts. Next, we have our claws. We're gonna twist the whole piece off here, and you'll notice there's several sections of the claw. Each little piece here has a nice chunk of meat. But to start, I usually like to hack open the claw and twist. Then you can gently slide the whole piece of claw right out in one big piece, which looks beautiful on our lobster roll. You can usually use your hands to get the rest of these pieces out. So we'll set these aside as well. Now we'll open up her head and rinse this part out. At this point, I crack the carcass in half, where you can find tons of really tender meat right along the insides here. But let's not forget about the legs. If you break the legs off and then lay them down, you can use something round like a rolling pin to push the meat all the way out. And as you can see, it slides right out the end. I'm also a big believer that you need some celery in a lobster roll. So once we have some of our meat laid out, I'm gonna chop up a bunch of celery into these super nice thin strips. Now chop it up nice and fine and set that aside as well. Now last but not least, just a few freshly chopped chives, which will go right on top of that lobster, and then it's time to finish our bread. Once our bread has risen, it's time to give them a nice little egg wash. After all, we want them to turn out nice and golden brown when out of the oven. So I'll paint over all of our buns with this egg wash, making sure that I get under every single little crevice. Now I'll bake these at 375 Fahrenheit for about 15 to 20 minutes. While we wait for our hot dog rolls, it's time to make some brown butter. And that's very simple. Whole stick of butter into our pan, and then we let that move around. As we approach that brown butter stage, the butter will start to get very frothy and bubbly. The second you start to see any golden brown color in the bottom of the pan, pull it off the heat. Then immediately pour it into a room temperature bowl, which will halt the cooking process. As you can see on the color here, we've hit that perfect, beautiful brown butter color and consistency. So first we'll go in with that lobster meat, and as you'll see, I like to keep it whole just to show that it really did come from a whole big lobster. Then we're gonna go in with a few of those milk solids from the brown butter, which are gonna give our lobster an amazing flavor, nutty and delicious. Then a couple of our chives, a small handful of our chopped celery, and a nice serving of cold Japanese mayo. I'll top it all off with just a little bit of my favorite flaky salt. And now we mix. These rolls look absolutely gorgeous. I have to say, they're extraordinarily hot, but this one right here looks perfect. The shape, the color, I wanna just eat this whole thing in one bite. Cut the camera, cut the camera. Once our cute little bun has had some time to rest, we're gonna make a nice slice right down the middle. Normally, I'd say you can totally toast both sides of the bun as well, but it's already got enough golden brown on it that I'm okay just filling it the way it is. At this point, it's time to fill that roll with our mayo-coated lobster. My goal with any lobster roll is to have it heaping and overflowing with lobster. You should also be able to see those enormous hunks when you go to eat it. Now to finish it off, we'll hit it with just a few chives here to give some bright green color. And here, I present to you my lobster roll. This right here has to be one of the most badass lobster rolls I've ever made. And I mean, I get it. Growing up in Rhode Island and then being in Boston means I should probably be able to know what I'm doing. Everyone has a different interpretation of a lobster roll. Some people don't like this much mayo. Some people don't like any mayo at all. Some people like it on a cold room temperature, sad bun. That's at least my opinion. I like what we have here. The contrast in temperature, those amazing textures that we brought out, the super golden brown bun there and the brown butter within the lobster meat itself. Then of course you make it all green and bright with those chives and that amazing creamy mayo with of course the celery bits for texture. Enough talking, it's time to take a bite. Well, I'm gonna unfire Manny, this is so good. I can say confidently that that is quite possibly the best lobster roll I've ever experienced, and I've had hundreds, if not thousands. Unfortunately, I'm allergic to shellfish, so I can't eat this whole thing here. I can't eat any of it at all, in fact. So in addition to keeping his job for the next day, it's Manny's lucky day because he's not fired and he gets to eat a lot of lobster. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget again to hit that like button, and if you liked it before, I'm gonna go give Pesto some lobster. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because we have some amazing videos coming right up. See you next time.